You wanted Republicans to be here. I'm here.
Why are you?
And by the way, you can pass an ACA extension right now. Sign on to this bill.
Did your boss
sign on to the bill?
Is your boss Donald Trump behind it?
HR 5145. Why don't you get on it?
You're a complete and total embarrassment.
Yeah.
You're embarrassing yourself and your district right now, and you're going down to defeat next year.
What conversations did you have with Mr. Ballard?
Senator Blumenthal, I cannot believe that you would accuse me of impropriety when you lied about your military service.
I am
you
not
lied.
asking
You admitted you lied to be elected a U.S. senator. You lied. How dare you? I'm a career prosecutor. Don't you ever challenge my integrity. I have abided by every ethics standard. Do not question my ability to be fair and impartial as Attorney General and anything with my former firm, Ballard Partners.
Thank you. Senator Lee has asked for the chair.
Just wanted to note for the record, the Paramount merger that he referenced was not within the Department of Justice's ambit. That was at the FCC, not the Department of Justice.
And then the FBI is involved with pre-bunking the Hunter Biden laptop story because they didn't want him to get elected again. So they pre-bunked the Hunter Biden laptop story. The American people should have been allowed to make their own judgments from that. They weren't, because the FBI called it a Russian hack and leak operation. They were meeting with social media companies every month and every week, telling them that the laptop that they knew, that they had verified in November of 2019, they knew was real and knew was his, said it was Russian disinformation. We've heard that before. And then, after Joe Biden comes in, 3 days in, they start a censorship campaign against the country, anybody who's a conservative. And now we also know that the FBI was weaponized in this Arctic frost investigation that tapped the phones of sitting U.S. senators, and also the Republican Attorneys General Association. So let's pull in two more U.S. senators, Ashley Moody and myself, who were on the executive committee at that time. Charlie Kirk, political organizations they didn't agree with. This is not in the Soviet Union in the 1980s. This is in the United States of America in the last few years. And then when they thought President Trump was on the run and there's no way people would elect him, and then he announces he's running for president, 3 days later, Jack Smith's appointed to get Trump. Fani Willis brings charges against President Trump, and the assistant prosecutor meets with the White House counsel's office. Why would that happen? Then you have Alvin Bragg bring his charges. The number 3 person at DOJ goes to work for him to get Trump. All in the United States of America. This continued. And Senator Hawley asked the question, wrote it down, what is happening in this country? And I hope that MSNBC is still broadcasting this, because I'm sure their viewership hasn't heard this story that's gone on for 10 years. The truth is, they never forgave President Trump for coming down the escalator at all. They didn't like him. They didn't like the disruption. And they've spent the better part of a decade not just going after him, but demonizing half the country as fascists and Nazis and threats to democracy. And they have fueled this division in their inability to accept the fact that half of the country isn't deplorables, as Hillary Clinton called her, bitter clingers, as Barack Obama called them, or trash, as Joe Biden called them. That they rose up and they sat in their own jury box and they saw all this stuff play out over a decade and they rejected it. And now you have come in to clean that up, and you are doing a great job in doing that. And let me make this clear. There is a big difference between what happened under the Biden regime and the weaponization, and then holding those people accountable. That is not weaponization. If that doesn't happen, this will happen all over again. So your job, as you talked about in your confirmation hearing, is so important that this never happens again. And holding people accountable who are part of this conspiracy is absolutely your job. And I'm also taking, you don't have to comment on this, your unwillingness to answer questions that have come up. I am led to believe, as a former attorney general, that might mean there's an ongoing investigation. You don't have to talk about it. The statute of limitations may have run on some of this stuff, but not on a conspiracy. And if you're a co-conspirator in mile marker 1, even if you want to get on the exit ramp in mile marker 5, you are liable for the conspiracy in mile marker 10. And we are at mile marker 10. And I will also say what's happening in this country. What's happening with the assault on ICE officers is truly shocking. Deportations are nothing new. Bill Clinton deported 12 million people. 12 million people. You didn't see this. The radicalization that's happened on the left that plays out with political violence is real. And by the way, let me also point out that if we had a scenario where John Thune was on the Supreme Court steps saying, "You've reaped a whirlwind, Supreme Court justices," and then a right-wing assassin tried to kill Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and then a Republican-appointed judge only gave that person 8 years, there would be riots on the streets. Cities would be burning right now. So let's just call it out. We need the cleansing here. Let's just be truthful about what's happening. This left-wing political violence is not a both sides thing. It's not.
To follow applicable court orders, whether they agree with them or not, yes or no.
First, Senator Padilla, you have gone on for over 5 minutes, and I wish that you loved your state of California as much as you hate President Trump. We'd be in really good shape then, because violent crime in California is currently 35% higher than the national average. Property crime in California is 18% higher than the national average. That should be something that we should be talking about and working together on, yet we're not. And no, this is important. You're talking about all of my agencies, and I want to let you know what DEA has been doing, and they are working hand in hand with
I appreciate that.
No, you can't go on for 5 minutes and criticize my agents who are out working without pay right now because you voted to shut down the government. They're out there working without pay.
Mr. Chairman, I asked a simple yes or no question. Attorney General Bondi
DEA, 4,500 kilos of fentanyl and 50 million fentanyl pills off the streets.
While under your watch,
FBI, 23,000 violent criminals. U.S. Marshals, 51,000 fugitives.
I'm not getting an answer to my question. I'm trying to move on to the next question or the next topic. Mr. Chairman, order, please. Thank you. Because under Attorney General Bondi's watch, career prosecutors are being fired for telling agencies to follow the law and uphold the Constitution. Meanwhile, there are instances of allies of the president who seem to be getting let off the hook. I won't reiterate what some of my colleagues have already brought up in terms of the dismissal of the investigation into Tom Homan and his alleged acceptance of $50,000 as payment by undercover FBI agents posing as business executives looking to secure contracts with a future Trump administration. Because if the reports are true, it's not just the underlying conduct of Mr. Homan, which would be absolutely unacceptable, but the dismissal of the investigation charges raises concerns about the influence of the White House on the Department of Justice. Again, a simple question, and I'd appreciate a simple and brief answer. Whose decision was it to end this investigation?
I have answered that question multiple times, yet you didn't have the courtesy to be sitting in here for the hearing. I'm not going to answer it again. And I find it interesting that you want order in this proceeding now. Excuse me, Senator. You want order in this proceeding now.
Chairman, order,
you sure didn't have order when you stormed Secretary Noem at a press conference in California, did you?
I will ask a follow-up question. Would you commit to either releasing the tape or at least making it available for members of this committee to review, yes or no?
Senator, you have not been sitting in here this entire hearing. I've answered the question, and I also want to tell you that our ATF agents have seized 25,000 illegal firearms.
So we will try again and move on to a different
In your
topic.
home state, we are prosecuting
Chairman,
illegal
order,
aliens
please.
who have raped
Mr. Chairman,
and murdered young
order,
girls.
Please. Thank you. So when I haven't been in this hearing, I've been watching from my office, monitoring the entire hearing, just so everybody is aware. But since I'm not getting answers to my questions, I'll try to ask one last subject area. Now, again, there's been increasing concerns about the politicized decision-making and the erosion of internal safeguards that protect prosecutorial independence. Before we even get into the integrity and independence of prosecutions, you have to ask the question about the independence and integrity of investigations themselves. The director of the FBI, Director Patel, was here before us just a few weeks ago. Attorney General Bondi, you are the Attorney General of the United States. Director Patel reports to you. Do you believe he's doing a good job, yes or no?
I believe Director Patel is doing a great job. You know where he is right now, Senator Padilla? Right now, you asked me a question.
Yes,
Director
I know
Patel
where he
right
is,
now
and I know
is
where
in
he's headed
Chicago,
because you said
Senator
it earlier
Durbin,
in the hearing.
fighting to keep
You've said it
Chicago
earlier in the hearing, and yes, I have been paying attention.
You know, you want order in here now, yet you stormed the Director of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. You sure didn't have order that day, did you, Senator?
Attorney General, you are under oath. I did not storm the secretary, the video.
Oh, that was on video. That
clear.
video has been released, I believe, very public.
Mr. Chairman, recent actions raise serious concerns about Director Patel's judgment and politicization, including lawsuits from former FBI officials alleging retaliatory firings and his decision to cut off longstanding partnerships with civil rights organizations and his decision to fire an FBI agent for refusing to engage in a, quote, perp walk of James Comey. And on top of all that, his prematurely claiming that subjects were in custody after the shooting of Charlie Kirk. I take Attorney General Bondi's endorsement today of his work as her support for those actions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
How do you feel about a standalone bill to pay our military?
I mean, I've said I'm willing to consider it. Again, I'm actually willing to consider a heck of a lot on getting through the shutdown. We just got to be in the same room to talk about it. And so I'm open to a lot of things. And I'm a big girl. I know that the Democrats don't have the White House, the Senate, and the House. And so I'm not going to get everything that I want, but you got to have a conversation. And in Michigan, we just lived through this. We almost had a government shutdown. Democrats and Republicans, we have split government. They weren't talking, and then they just sat down in the same room. They go over a period of 72 hours, kicked out the press, kicked out Twitter, and came to a deal, and the government is open and we have a budget. So we've seen the movie in Michigan. I just think we could play the sequel here in DC.
So military pay, you're for it?
I'm willing to consider it, as I said.
Okay.
I gotta go.
Mr. President, we are now 9 days into the Democrats' government shutdown. 9 days in which Democrats have had multiple opportunities to support a clean, nonpartisan CR sitting right here at the Senate desk to reopen the government. Something that's been passed by our colleagues in the House of Representatives that has achieved 55 senators, Senate majority, out of 100 senators, 55 senators support this 24-page resolution sitting at the desk, which could open up the government today, because soon as the Senate passes it, the President will sign it into law. And Mr. President, this is the same nonpartisan measure that, as I said, passed the House 3 weeks ago. No partisan riders, no gimmicks, no partisan policies, Republican policies, anything like that. A simple resolution, 24 pages long, to open up our government and make sure that the federal employees and the American people who depend upon them get paid. Mr. President, the President's ready to sign it. All it takes is a handful of Democrats. There are 3 Democrats who have already supported this clean continuing resolution. Just a handful more, and we can end this shutdown in a matter of hours. 55 senators, a Senate majority, a majority of the 100 United States senators, majority in the House of Representatives. The President of the United States is prepared to sign it. That's how straightforward this proposition is. And we've already seen, Mr. President, plenty of negative impact from the Democrat shutdown. But a whole new wave of pain begins tomorrow if Democrats don't act. Because if we fail to fund the government by the end of the day today, American service members will begin going without their paychecks starting tomorrow. That's right, Mr. President. If Democrats can't bring themselves to reopen the government by the end of the day, our troops, the people who protect and defend this country, will start missing their paychecks. To say that that's unacceptable is an understatement. Many of our service members are serving in harm's way at this very moment. All of them stand ready to rush into danger at a moment's notice to protect the rest of us. They and their families make numerous sacrifices to serve our country. The very idea, Mr. President, that they won't get a paycheck because Democrats can't bring themselves to accept a clean, nonpartisan CR is beyond the pale. Mr. President, if the government remains shut down after today, instead of getting our troops paid, they're going to have to continue stretching what money they've saved. And unfortunately, Mr. President, sometimes that's not very much. As one advocate for military families put it, and I quote, "This isn't just a financial hardship. It's destabilizing for households and military readiness alike." Military readiness. Many families have already begun to visit food banks near bases. And it's even harder on families with a loved one who's deployed. Amy Palmer, who runs an organization that helps military families in Colorado, said families of the deployed, and I quote, "are having to navigate this alone. They're used to getting the paycheck and paying bills on behalf of their entire family. And with that service member deployed and not really having that support system from them, it is really hard," end quote. Well, Mr. President, it's not just our troops who are going to be missing a paycheck. Civilian workers will also be missing part of their pay starting this Friday, including law enforcement officers like the members of our very own Capitol Police. Food banks and other nonprofits around the country are bracing for increased demand from federal employees, especially here in the National Capital Region. I remember when a Democrat leader was a passionate opponent of government shutdowns because of their impact on federal workers. I'm pretty sure that was just about 6 months ago. Other Democrats used to be concerned about the impact on federal workers as well. A few years ago, our Democrat colleague from New Jersey, himself a former career federal worker, had this to say, and I quote, "I worked through multiple shutdowns, including, having to work and show up every day without getting paid. I mean, it's just so scary to think of the fact that this is going to hurt people," end quote. Yet Democrats aren't showing the slightest interest in reopening the government to ensure our troops and federal employees get paid. Mr. President, later today, we're going to have another vote on the clean continuing resolution to open up the government. As I said, we are a handful of Democrats away from passing this continuing resolution and reopening the government. A handful of votes away from paying our troops. And we're going to see if that matters to Democrats. We'll see if Democrats choose to pay America's troops, or if they once again bow to the demands of their far-left base, which is telling them to hold out, or to their strategists who tell them that they're, quote, winning the shutdown. Well, based on the reporting this morning, Democrats couldn't care less whether military families miss a paycheck tomorrow. In an interview posted this morning, the Democrat leader said, "Every day gets better for us." Every day gets better for us. Mr. President, this isn't a political game. Democrats might feel that way, but I don't know of anybody else that does. Mr. President, the longer this goes on, the more the American people realize the Democrats own this shutdown. A Morning Consult poll finds that, and I quote, "Voters increasingly blame Democrats for the government shutdown," end quote. In the latest Harvard-Harris poll, 65% of voters think Democrats should reopen the government instead of holding out for their partisan demands. But Democrats are apparently being told to hold the line by their far-left base, and so this shutdown drags on. Mr. President, we can solve the issue of troop pay and every other problem we're seeing today by passing this clean, nonpartisan CR and sending it to the president. He's ready to sign it. If Democrats would only agree, we could reopen the government in just a few hours, literally. Pay our troops, pay our federal workers, and stop this madness and this notion that somehow in this political game, the Democrats believe, according to their leader, that every day gets better for us. That, Mr. President, is not the experience of the American people. It's time to end this shutdown, to reopen this government. Let's pass this CR today.
The federal government has now been shut down for more than a week. But Donald Trump, Speaker Johnson, and Republicans in Congress are nowhere to be found. Instead of playing with people's lives, Donald Trump and Republican leaders in Congress need to sit down with Democrats and have a serious negotiation to fix health care and reopen the government at once. Workers are starting to miss out on paychecks. Seniors are worried about delays at the Social Security Administration. Small business with government contracts are in the dark. We need to end this shutdown as soon as possible. Every day that Republicans refuse to negotiate to end this shutdown, the worse it gets for Americans, and the clearer it becomes who's fighting for them. Each day, our case to fix health care and end the shutdown gets better and better, stronger and stronger, because families are opening their letters, showing how high their premiums will climb if Republicans get their way. They're seeing why this fight matters. It's about protecting their health care, their bank accounts, their futures. But Republicans are absent. The House is literally on vacation. And Donald Trump, meanwhile, continues to play with people's lives and threaten mass layoffs for federal workers. Yesterday, the Wall Street Journal reported that Republican leaders in Congress have been urging the administration not to follow through with their threats of mass layoffs and no back pay for furloughed federal workers. The Journal wrote, quote, that far-reaching government cuts and firings could backfire with the public. And aides have been, quote, warning that such moves could cause voters to blame Republicans for the shutdown. That's the Wall Street Journal. Well, this is spot on. If Donald Trump thinks that punishing federal workers and treating the American public as pawns is going to help him politically, he's making a terrible mistake. Because the American people are smart. They see what Trump and the Republicans are doing. They know Republicans are the ones in charge. They have the presidency, the House, the Senate, not Democrats. We Democrats want to end this shutdown as quickly as we can. But Donald Trump and Republicans need to negotiate with us in a serious way to fix the health care premiums crisis. We can and should do both. It's not either or, like Republicans think. President Trump, meanwhile, is simply not taking this shutdown seriously because as we speak, the Trump administration continues to negotiate a $20 billion bailout for Argentina to prop up a MAGA ally. Apparently, Donald Trump thinks $20 billion for a MAGA-friendly government in Argentina is fine, but fixing health care premiums here at home is not. Meanwhile, thanks to Trump's bungled trade war with China, American soybean farmers have been shut out of foreign markets and are facing mass bankruptcies. With American farmers cut out, farmers in countries like Argentina are taking advantage, selling record number of soybeans to China. But instead of helping American farms now in the middle of a shutdown, Donald Trump wants to send $20 billion to Argentina to help them compete against American farmers. All while hungry Americans face higher grocery prices and the largest cuts ever to nutrition aid, thanks to Donald Trump and the Republicans' big ugly bill. It's utter lunacy. Whose side is Donald Trump on? And the situation is no better here in Congress. In the middle of a shutdown crisis, Speaker Johnson has shut the lights off to the halls of Congress. We Democrats have made clear that Republicans need to engage with us in serious negotiation to end this destructive shutdown and fix health care premiums as soon as we can. But Speaker Johnson has sent the House on vacation. He has sent members home now for 3 weeks, and it sounds like he'll keep them away for at least another week more. The House of Representatives has not held a vote, a single vote, since September 19th, 20 days ago. In fact, Mr. President, would you care to guess how many days the House has been in town since the end of July? 12 days. That's it. Since the summer, the House of Representatives has held votes for only 12 days. If you're someone who works 2 jobs, or works weekends or overtime to make ends meet, what on earth are you supposed to think, when House Republicans can't even be bothered to show up to reopen the government? House Republicans are not working and getting paid, and they're asking the American people House Republicans are getting paid and not working, and they're asking federal workers to work and not get paid. If your electricity prices are skyrocketing, if your premiums are going up by thousands of dollars, if you're getting charged more for a cup of coffee or your groceries, and you see Republicans on vacation for 3 weeks straight, that's basically a middle finger to hardworking Americans. And let's be clear. The Speaker's dig in at all costs approach is not sitting well with some members of his own party. Yesterday, Marjorie Taylor Greene said the following, quote, "The House has so much work to do. Why aren't we coming back in session? We could be doing appropriations, passing important bills, and more." Representative Massey of Kentucky tweeted something similar. "The government is shut down, but the House refuses to go back in session. Why are we in recess?" said Republican Massey. "Because the day we go back into session, I have 218 votes for the discharge petition to force a vote on releasing the Epstein files." Representative Kevin Kiley of California, Republican, meanwhile posted this: "The Speaker shouldn't even think about canceling session for a 3rd straight week." So the cracks are showing on the Republican side because they know Speaker Johnson's position of not budging on health care fixes is untenable. And in Louisiana, I would have thought that of all people interested in fixing ACA premiums, it would have been a representative from the state of Louisiana. Yesterday, I read a sobering report from the Times-Picayune saying that, quote, "Louisiana stands to lose the most if the ACA premium tax credits expire." According to that report, 85,000 Louisiana residents will lose health insurance. Many will see their premiums skyrocket. The average 60-year-old Louisiana couple making $85,000 a year would see insurance costs rise from $600 a month to $2,000 a month. Hear that, Mr. Speaker? That's your constituents. Good Americans in your own state will suffer the most if the ACA premiums expire. People will go bankrupt. People will get sick. People will die. All because the Speaker chose to keep the House on vacation rather than come to work and negotiate with Democrats to fix this health care crisis and end their Trump shutdown. Shameful. We urge Republicans to back away from their corner and have serious negotiations with the American serious negotiations that the American people deserve and expect before people get sick and go bankrupt.
Senator, I think it's been well documented. You're not a fan of shutdowns.
No. I don't think anybody benefits from them.
Yeah. Can you explain why?
Well, I think, fundamentally it just sort of demonstrates the dysfunction of Congress. And that's not a confidence builder for anybody. And it's completely unnecessary. It doesn't solve any problems. because what happens when you shut down the government and then you reopen it, the same problems are there staring you in the face. So this is unnecessary drama, and I think is, frankly, pretty embarrassing.
And how do we get out of this? It seems like Democrats are dug in, Republicans are dug in. Where do we go forward?
Well, the House of Representatives has passed a short-term continuing resolution that takes us into November that's ready to be voted on in the Senate. So far, 3 Democrats have voted with Republicans to reopen the government, and we're hopeful that more will peel off as we have other opportunities, including tomorrow, for them to vote for it. So we're going to have the conversation that I know they want to have about health care subsidies, a lot of the Biden-era COVID subsidies for health care, which have been well documented to be the subject of a lot of waste and fraud. So we'll have that conversation between now and the end of the year, but doing this now and holding the American people hostage and the government hostage to force that conversation now before we're really ready to have that discussion is just completely unnecessary.
Have you had any conversations with your moderate Democratic colleagues who you think you may be able to turn over the next few days?
I'm still looking for a moderate Democrat. They're hard to find these days.
So no?
Well, we've talked to some of them just to listen to what they've had to say, but my message to them is there's not going to be any negotiations as long as the government's shut down. I think the vice president said it yesterday. He said, open the government back up and then we'll talk, which is, I think, a rational, reasonable position to take. But so far, as you point out, Democrats seem to be pretty dug in. I think they've gotten themselves in a box canyon, and they are having a hard time figuring out how to get out of it.
And some Democrats have said that, you in March passed this CR and then with 60 votes and then came back and the threshold for rescissions was 50. Would you be open to changing that?
No, I think once we reopen the government, I'm open to any discussion. But what they're demanding is completely outrageous. It's trillions of dollars and more spending. It's repeal some of the provisions of the One Big Beautiful Bill, now called the Working Family Tax Cut Act, that would deny taxpayer-supported health care to illegal aliens. And there's a $50 billion rural hospital stabilization fund that they want to repeal and spend on other purposes. Texas is a big place. We have a lot of rural hospitals that need our help, and I'm not going to vote to repeal that provision.
So, and then would you be open to something like changing the filibuster if Democrats aren't willing to get on board for the CR?
I don't think we should blow up the Senate in the way it operates in order to appease this obstruction by Democrats. I think time will gradually convince them that this is a losing game on their part, and they'll come around. But in the meantime, they are also risking a lot because the director of the Office of Management and Budget is talking about making some major cuts in federal government employees during this period of time, which he has broad discretion to do. So they're really playing with dynamite.
Yeah, are you okay with the president and OMB director with these massive layoffs if the government stays closed?
Well, I don't know how massive they would be, but it's interesting when the government shutdown occurs like this, then usually there's essential government employees and then there is the non-essential. And it makes you wonder whether if people are non-essential government employees, why are they working for the government? Why are we spending money we don't have and borrowing from future generations to pay for that? So I think maybe it'll provoke a discussion about what is the right size of government staffing. But that's just another maybe unintended and for Democrats maybe unwelcome consequence of their boneheaded idea to shut down the government.
And then the OMB director also posted these, he called them green new scam grants that will be cut to 14 states, I believe it is, and they were all states that had 2 Democrats in the Senate. Yeah. Are you okay with him targeting those specific states?
Well, I think, when you get into a conflict like this, people are going to do things that they wouldn't otherwise do. We do need to have serious conversations, and we've dealt with some of these Green New Deal scams, as you called them, and maybe as he called them. And some of them make no sense whatsoever. And when we're $37 trillion in debt, we need to find ways to cut federal spending, and certainly waste, fraud, and abuse, and that may be one of them.
And do you think you're making good progress on an actual budget? Aside from the CR?
Well, the Appropriations Committee is talking about needing this additional time in order to work on bipartisan and appropriations bills with the House of Representatives, which I think is a worthy objective, a worthy goal, because that will get us away from all the drama of these periodic shutdowns, and by doing a regular appropriation. So that's why we need the additional time to November the 20th, so that can conclude hopefully successfully.
And then how long do you think it'll take to get these 5 more Democrats on board that you're looking for?
Well, it's really their call, but I can tell from my conversations on the Senate floor yesterday that there are a lot of nervous Democrats because they're having a hard time explaining this shutdown back home, when historically they have always decried and criticized government shutdowns. I think the Democratic leader called it idiocy, and now here he goes engaging in what the kind of conduct he himself has labeled as idiocy. So I agree, it makes no sense. Nobody wins in shutdowns, and it's just, I think, unfortunately conveys a sense of dysfunction and undermines confidence in our ability to do the work on behalf of 320 million people.
Anything else, Senator, that you wanted to add?
I think you covered the waterfront.